Hello, everybody. Welcome to my first attempt to react to something live. For those who don't know, I'm Liam Haxton. I write The Truth on Substack. You can find it at haxton.substack.com. So today, Biden is giving/gave his first State of the Union. I have not seen this yet. We'll see what he says. I'm going to react to it fairly regularly, like pausing it fairly regularly. We'll see what happens. I would be cautious to be optimistic in the slightest about anything that him saying anything worth saying. I will just say that this is a really bad time for Joe Biden. His approval rating is down the drain. I think the latest poll I saw put him at about 37%, which is like worse than Trump's average ever got. He it's like World War III maybe going to happen in Russia. There's like the pandemic, which is still raging. More people have died under him than died under Trump. So, I mean, this is not a good time for Joe Biden. The economy is horrific. Like, yeah, rich people are getting richer, but at the same time, like inflation is destroying poor people. Well, not even poor people, like the vast majority of people of working in middle classes. The job market isn't great. Wages are rising at a rate smaller than inflation. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. Meanwhile, of course, businesses are making a bigger profit than ever, so there's that. We'll see. The other thing I don't like straight off the bat is that Joe Biden. I like that we get to listen to him lay out his agenda. I don't like that he. I don't like that the opposition don't get to respond. So, like, I'll give you the example of the UK. When the Prime Minister gives a speech, the leader of the opposition goes, and then the leader of the third party, which is the Scottish Nationalists, they get a speech, and then the fourth leader, which I guess is the Liberal Democrats, they get a speech, and then everyone gets to speak. They get to ask questions. They get to interrupt. Here, Joe Biden stands up, reads a speech off a teleprompter, and then sits back down, and that's it. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. We'll see.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Please. Thank you so much. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President, our First Lady and Second Gentleman, members of Congress and the Cabinet, Justices of the Supreme Court, my fellow Americans. Last year, COVID-19 kept us apart. This year, we're finally together again. Tonight,
That's good. But he's treating it like it's an accomplishment of his. It's not. It's an accomplishment of the fact that the polls now say that people don't like COVID restrictions, whereas they were much more receptive to them last year. COVID, like in terms of deaths and hospitalizations in the US, is much worse now. Well, much worse of about 2 weeks ago than it was at this point last year. So you can't. It's not like he's done something that's so holy and brilliant that COVID just got magically better. It's just that they've decided that the polls don't look good for COVID restrictions, so they're not going to do COVID restrictions. It's not because there's something ideological. It's just because they felt like their attempt to gain more power wasn't as beneficial for them now as it was in the past. I also love how ABC, which is what we're using, has just got a small split screen just outside. I guess it's the capital. Like, there's no benefit to having that there, but they've got it.
Tonight, we meet as Democrats, Republicans, Independents, but most importantly, as Americans, with the duty to one another, to America, to the American people, to the Constitution, and an unwavering resolve that freedom will always triumph over tyranny.
Drug warrior Joe Biden complaining about people talking about how he's a fighter for freedom. If you're a fighter for freedom, Joe, you would be releasing every non-violent drug offender. You would be making, at the very least, possession of drugs. You would decriminalize it, if not legalizing it. You would be pardoning, at the very, very least, you'd be pardoning non-violent drug offenders. So you don't get to complain about tyranny. You don't get to pretend that you're on the side of freedom. You tried to you tried a soft vaccine mandate, where you said to people you either have to get vaccinated or get tested every week. Otherwise, you don't get your job. Like, you don't get to complain about tyranny when you're telling people what they can and cannot put in their own bodies when it doesn't harm a single other person.
Thank you. 6 days ago, Russia's Vladimir Putin sought to shake the very foundations of the free world, thinking he could make it bend to his menacing ways. But he badly miscalculated. He thought he could roll into Ukraine and the world would roll over. Instead, he met with a wall of strength he never anticipated or imagined. He met the Ukrainian people.
Okay, so that lady there is the Ukrainian ambassador to the US. It's not her that's fighting against the Russian army. She's sitting in a comfortable house in the Ukrainian embassy. Like, I don't know anything about her. I'm not even going to remember her name in about 10 minutes' time. But why are we applauding her? It's not like she didn't do anything. It's the Russian people. All the Russian, sorry, not the Russian, sorry, Freudian slip there. It's the Ukrainian people who are being absolute heroes. Well, about 93% of them who aren't Nazis. The 7%, yeah, don't care. Just, it's those people who we should be celebrating, not the ambassador who lives on the other side of the world. Well, yeah, I don't understand that. I don't get why we're applauding her rather than, like, seriously, what's the point of having her there just to applaud her? Because she's not. It's not her that's doing it. There are millions of other Ukrainians who you probably could get in that seat, and I would not have a single problem with it. But not the one who's been in America the whole time. Seriously, come on, mate.
President.
As I say though, I don't know anything about her record, so maybe she's like amazing on this, and maybe she's like been on the ground. She just flew over and she's flying back to fight the Russians today. Maybe that's true. I don't know, but I'm just going to predict that that's not true, and that she's been as useless as everyone else is in Washington.
Zelensky, to every Ukrainian, their fearlessness, their courage, their determination literally inspires the world. Groups of citizens blocking tanks with their bodies. Everyone from students to retirees to teachers turned soldiers defending their homeland. And in this struggle, President Zelensky said in his speech to the European Parliament, light will win over darkness. The Ukrainian ambassador to the United States is here tonight, sitting with the First Lady. Let each of us, if you're...
I just find that really weird that he has to refer to his own wife as by her official title. Just call her Jill. Like, you, oh, there are some things I don't get in this world. Just call her Jill. His wife, not the Ukrainian ambassador.
You're able to stand, and send an unmistakable signal to the world. Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She's bright, she's strong, and she's resolved. Yes. We, the United States of America, stand with the Ukrainian people. Throughout our history, we've learned this lesson. When dictators do not pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos. They keep moving, and the cost, the threats.
I don't think any country has caused more chaos, at least like since World War II, than the United States have. Like, just like I'm sure there's a list somewhere of all the countries that they've either organized a coup or um, like done a war or tried to invade or so many things that they've done. I've got something of a list here, starting in 1945. China, Syria, Korea, China again, Iran, Guatemala, Tibet, Indonesia, Cuba, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Iraq, Dominican Republic, Vietnam, of course, Brazil, Belgian Congo, Guatemala, Laos, Dominican Republic again, Peru, Greece, Guatemala again, Cambodia, Chile, Argentina, Turkey, Poland, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Cambodia again, Angola, Lebanon, Grenada, Philippines, Libya, Iran, Libya again, Panama, Iraq again, Kuwait, Somalia, Iraq again, Bosnia, Iran again, Sudan, Afghanistan, Yugoslavia and Serbia, Afghanistan again, famously, Iraq, famously, Somalia, Iran, Libya, Yemen, the Palestinian people. They're not technically their own country, I don't think anymore. But yeah, Somalia as of present. There are so many countries that America has caused chaos to, and Joe Biden, for all the ones he had any power on, he supported these measures, and he does not get to complain about other countries creating chaos when he does this himself. All that he doesn't like is that it's the Russians doing it and not him, and it's Ukraine rather than a country where they have starker disagreements. And yeah, so Joe, you don't get to complain about this.
To America and America to the world keeps rising. That's why the NATO alliance was created, to secure peace and stability in Europe.
Yep, that worked. NATO, which is agreed in 1991 that they wouldn't expand toward Russia and then did so 5 times. Like, okay, I thought until Putin gave that long speech, I thought that was the main reason this was all happening. Um, I'm still about I'm okay. I think there's about a 40% chance that if NATO didn't go any further, Russia wouldn't have invaded. I think that Putin has that he's conscious of the fact that okay, in reality, I think that Putin's conscious of the fact that they have gone further and further, like closer and closer to the Russian border. But he's also like just paranoid about the fact that he thinks Ukraine is a Russian territory, which they're not. I was wrong about that. Um, yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. I don't know if Biden. I don't think Biden gets to complain about other countries' imperialism. Sorry.
After World War II, the United States is a member along with 29 other nations. It matters. American diplomacy matters. American resolve matters. Putin's
American bombs matter. We drop a lot of them. And drones. We use a lot of drones.
latest attack on Ukraine was premeditated and totally unprovoked. He rejected repeated efforts at diplomacy.
Yeah, from France. France tried diplomacy. Again, Biden. I feel like Biden's trying to suggest that this is something that he did. It's not him. Macron did it. Emmanuel Macron, and I hate Emmanuel Macron, but he was much better on this than Joe Biden or Anthony Blinken, who's on screen right now. Why are you pretending this is something that America did, Joe? Was that's the framing that he's putting this in? My government tried diplomacy, and Putin didn't offer it. Putin wasn't willing to play ball. Joe didn't really try diplomacy. The French did, but Joe didn't. So, shut up, Joe.
He thought the West and NATO wouldn't respond. He thought he could divide us at home, in this chamber, in this nation. He thought he could divide us in Europe as well.
Well, I did actually see earlier that Joe Manchin was sitting with the Republicans, so they aren't as divided at home as they once were, I guess. Yeah, look, I don't think I need to say it again. What Putin's doing is horrific. It's imperialism. I wrote an article about this, texting.subject.com, that I suggest you all read. But, like, again, what... Putin is horribly imperialistic. But again, Joe Biden and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party do not get to complain about imperialism because they do it all the time.
But Putin was wrong. We are ready. We are united, and that's what we did. We stayed united. We prepared extensively and carefully. We spent months building coalitions of other freedom-loving nations in Europe and the Americas, from America to the Asian and African continents, to confront Putin. Like many of you, I spent countless hours unifying our European allies. We shared with the world in advance what we knew Putin was planning and precisely how we would try to falsify and justify his aggression. We countered Russia's lies with the truth. And now
I thought you said it was going to happen on February 16th. It happened on about the 22nd or so, didn't it? That was a lie. You said it was going to happen on the 20th. It didn't. That was a lie. Joe Biden does not get to talk about other countries lying. Any American who supported the Iraq and Afghanistan wars any American politician who supported those wars does not get to complain about other people lying, because those wars, they lied constantly. Yeah. Joe does not... Joe's taking many liberties here. I don't think he gets to take with his voting record.
He's acted. The free world is holding him accountable, along with 27 members of the European Union, including France, Germany, Italy, as well as countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and many others.
Shout out to my New Zealand brothers and sisters in the audience. I didn't realise we'd done that. We pretty much said, I thought our government response was pretty much, we can't do anything without the UN. So, yeah. Also, the other thing about sanctions is that, like, irrespective of however you aim them, they enormously will impact the people of the country that you're trying to punish. And by the people, I'm not talking about the billionaires, the oligarchs, who are awful, awful, awful people. I'm talking about the regular Russian person who I wrote about the poll the other day. 50% of Russian people do not support the war. That is the highest you're ever going to get in a country with such a high level of propaganda. 50% do not support the war. The Russian people are not happy about this. They are being economically hit hard. Many of them have been put into straight into poverty. Russia was not a rich country before this, and you have just made it so much worse for the Russian people who don't support this, who hate it. Thousands upon thousands have protested it, and you're now punishing them for that. Look, I don't know what you do here because every option harms innocent people who never did anything wrong. But like, I don't think you get to tout anything you do in this as a success.
Even Switzerland are inflicting pain on Russia.
Even Switzerland. Does Joe Biden have something against the Swiss? I guess they do have the banks or whatever, but even Switzerland.
And supporting the people of Ukraine. Putin is now isolated from the world more than he has ever been. Together, along with our allies, we are right now enforcing powerful economic sanctions. We're cutting off Russia's largest banks in the international financial system, preventing
Russian banks, at least, I don't know much about Russian banks to be totally honest, but I thought they were mostly independent, so this isn't going to hit them too hard, is it? Just my thoughts. I might be totally wrong, but I don't think the banks and the oligarchs are going to be too badly affected. The people will be. The poorer people, poorer and middle class people will be, but I don't think that rich people who actually support this will be.
Russia's central bank from defending the Russian ruble, making Putin's $630 billion war fund worthless. We're choking Russia's access. We're choking Russia's access to technology that will sap its economic strength and weaken its military for years to come. Tonight, I say to the Russian oligarchs and the corrupt leaders who built billions of dollars off this violent regime, no more. The United States, I mean it.
So I see a few Ukrainian flags in the audience, which, I mean, again, I'd probably be waving one as well. But just about everyone in that room, with only a few exceptions, supported the Iraq War, which killed over a million people. That you don't get to complain about war crimes if you supported that one. It's not like rules for thee but not for me. It's you don't get to be inconsistent on this. You're either opposed to it both times or you support it both times, in which case you're wrong, but at least you're consistent. You don't get to cherry pick which war crime do you like because my team did it and not the other team did it. Just no.
The United States Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets.
So Joe Biden wants to take away private jets, yachts, and luxury houses away from billionaires? Do it. Jeff Bezos, we're coming for you. Don't leave it. Don't stick with just Russia. All of them. Go, Joe. In the billionaire class. Do it. He won't do it. They will donate to him.
We're coming for you, ill-begotten gains. And tonight, I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy.
So we're stopping Russian people who want to escape their tyrannical government from coming here. Cool. Trying to make sure I understand this.
30% of its value. The Russian stock market has lost 40% of its value, and trading remains suspended. The Russian economy is reeling, and Putin alone is the one to blame. Together with our allies, we're providing support to the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. Military assistance, economic assistance, humanitarian assistance. We're giving more than $1 billion of direct assistance to Ukraine, and will continue to aid the Ukrainian people as they defend their country and help ease their suffering. But let me be clear, our forces are not engaged and will not engage in the conflict with Russian forces in Ukraine.
Good. It's genuinely that's good news, because if America and Russia get into war with each other, that doesn't end so good. Yeah, we all die. Two countries with 8,000 nukes each going to war with each other. That's not good. So the fact that Joe Biden has just said that they will not be sending troops into Ukraine to fight the Russians is really good news, and probably one of the best decisions he's made as president, if he follows through with it, if he still decides not to send troops in.
Our forces are not going to Europe to fight Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies in the event that Putin decides to keep moving west. For that purpose, we have mobilized American ground forces, air squadrons, ship deployments to protect NATO countries, including Poland, Romania, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And as I've made crystal clear, the United States and our allies will defend every inch of territory that is NATO territory with the full force of our collective power. Every single inch.
I mean, I don't think that 5 of those countries should be NATO in the first place. So I don't know how I feel about that. Like, genuinely, I don't know. Like, obviously, if Russia goes into them, even more so, Putin, he can go. Like, he can. Yeah, if he goes into those countries, one of the biggest war criminals he's ever been. And he's already. I mean, obviously, he's already a war criminal. But I also don't. I don't know how I feel about preparing for World War III. Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. That's all I can really say.
And we're clear-eyed. The Ukrainians are fighting back with pure courage. But the next few days, weeks, and months will be hard on them. Putin has unleashed violence and chaos. But while he may make gains on the battlefield, he'll pay a continuing high price over the long run. And a pound of Ukrainian people, proud people, pound for pound, ready to fight with every inch of energy they have. They've known 30 years of independence, have repeatedly shown that they will not tolerate anyone who tries to take their country backwards. To all Americans, I'll be honest with you, as I always promised I would be. A Russian
Joe Biden was not always honest with the American people.
dictator invading a foreign country has cost around the world. And I'm taking robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy, and that we use every tool at our disposal to protect American businesses and consumers. Tonight, I can announce the United States has worked with 30 other countries to release 60 million barrels of oil from reserves around the world.
Yay, more oil. Okay, for the current economy, that's probably not bad, but at the same time, climate change is happening, guys. Like, we can't keep okay. This is honestly what's happening currently in Russia is disastrous for climate change. So, Ukraine's got a lot of natural resource. Russia's got a lot of oil. But because we're cutting them off, what's going to happen is that Joe Biden is going to go start doing more fracking, more oil drilling, all of which is disastrous for climate change. And climate change is going to speed up. Like, it's already a horrific situation, but it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse with this war.
America will lead that effort, releasing 30 million barrels of our own strategic petroleum reserve. And we stand ready to do more if necessary, united with our allies. These steps will help blunt gas prices here at home, but I know news about what's happening can seem alarming to all Americans. But I want you to know we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. When the history of this era is written, Putin's war in Ukraine will have left Russia weaker and the rest of the world stronger.
Is he crying? Like, there's absolutely nothing that Joe Biden did that is worth crying over. Like, okay, obviously, what's happening in Ukraine is horrifying and upsetting. But surely, like, it's the images of that, the very real images and videos of that happening, that is scary, not the that is like worth crying over, not the 80-year-old dude who's a bit demented standing up and telling you about it. Like,
Well, while it shouldn't, it shouldn't have taken something so terrible for people around the world to.
worst Republican there is. And he looks like a turtle. Fuck you, Mitch McConnell.
See what's at stake. Now everyone sees it clearly. We see the unity among leaders of nations, a more unified Europe, a more unified West. We see unity among the people who are gathering in cities and large crowds around the world, even in Russia, to demonstrate their support for the people of Ukraine.
So why are you punishing these Russian people? Oh, shit. Why are you punishing these Russian people who are, as you say, incredibly brave in their protests? I mean, over thousands upon thousands of them have been arrested, and you are punishing them with your sanctions, Joe. Mate, you don't get to talk about them as heroes and then make like financially destroy them. You don't get to play that game. And the reason I say that these sanctions are devastating for the people is that, I mean, if you look at any country with the US's sanctions, okay, let's start in Cuba. The Castros, until they like retired, or well, and Fidel until he died, and his brother until he retired, weren't affected by it. The people were, but they weren't. The current guy, I've forgotten his name, but he's still in power despite the sanctions. In Venezuela, they've got massive sanctions. There were reports that 20,000, I think it was either 20,000 or 40,000 Venezuelans had died as a result of American sanctions. Maduro's still in there. Hugo Chavez only left because he died. What are the other countries that they've got sanctions on? There are three others at the moment that I'm. North Korea, Kim Jong Un's still happy as ever, and obviously the people are starving. This isn't me defending these regimes at all. This isn't me trying to wipe those regimes of the crimes they've committed against their own people. But it is. It's just another point in the fact that Joe Biden's sanctions and the American sanctions, even when they're aimed towards destroying the upper classes who caused the situation, it doesn't actually harm them. It harms the poor people. It harms the middle class people. So, again, that's why I'm not celebrating these sanctions.
Ukraine. In the battle between democracy and autocracies, Democracies are rising to the moment, and the world is clearly choosing the side of peace and security. This is the real test, and it's going to take time.
I wish the world did that when America went into Iraq.
So let us continue to draw inspiration from the iron will of the Ukrainian people. To our fellow Ukrainian Americans who forged the deep bond that connects our two nations, we stand with you. We stand with you. Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love of freedom, and he will never weaken the resolve of the free world.
That is Cold War language, the free world. Um, you know, you can't like Americans are supposedly free, but in reality, they've got two options who are effectively the same on economic and foreign policy. So you can't really call that a democracy. What was the word? I think he called like Russia an aristocracy. America's got the most billionaires in the world, and also millions upon millions of food insecure people. That I would describe that um as an fuck, I can't speak today. Um, you know the word. Sounds like something Trump would say. And Biden for that matter. Yeah, so I don't think Biden gets to talk about Russia being an aristocracy. That was the word. When America effectively is as well.
We meet tonight in an America that has lived through two of the hardest years this nation has ever faced. The pandemic has been punishing, and so many families are living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to keep up with the rising cost of food, gas, housing, and so much more. I understand, like many of you did. My dad had to leave his home in Scranton, Pennsylvania to find work. So, like many of you, I grew up in a family when the price of food went up, it was felt throughout the family. It had an impact. That's one of the first things I did as president was fight to pass the American Rescue Plan. Because people were hurting. We needed to act, and we did. Few pieces of legislation have done more at a critical moment in our history to lift us out of a crisis. It fueled our efforts to vaccinate the nation and
The American Rescue Plan was actually okay. So he promised he would give every American $2,000 checks in February, and he gave them $1,400 checks in April. So that's not good. But it wasn't. It was actually a decent plan, and I don't have a major problem with it. I don't know. I couldn't work out what Kevin McCarthy was muttering there. For those of you who don't know who he is, he's the Republican leader in the House. I couldn't work out what he was saying, but I would. I really want to know.
combat COVID-19, delivered immediate economic relief to tens of millions of Americans. It helped put food on the table. Remember those long lines of cars waiting for hours just to get a box of food put in their trunk? It cut the cost of healthcare insurance. And as my dad
Cut the cost of healthcare insurance by giving everyone healthcare under Section 1881A. So it was, yeah, Section 1881A of the Affordable Care Act. You can do it with the stroke of a pen, Joe. In an emergency, you can give every American healthcare. COVID-19 is definitely an emergency. Do it! Do it! There's nothing stopping you.
Dad used to say it gave the people just a little bit of breathing room. Unlike the $2 trillion tax cut passed in the previous administration that benefited the top 1% of Americans, the American Rescue Plan helped working people and left no one behind.
He's not wrong, but the American Rescue Plan should have gone further. They should have made the child tax credit permanent. They probably should have cut taxes for poor people. They should have raised taxes massively on rich people. They should have raised the minimum wage to $15. There are a number of things that should have been in there that weren't. So it was decent. It was a decent piece of legislation, but in no way was it perfect. The perfect thing he's making it out to be.
And it worked. It worked. It worked. We created jobs, lots of jobs. In fact, our economy created over 6.5 million new jobs just last year.
Yeah. It was also every month the headline seems to be disappointing jobs report for March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. It's pretty easy to create jobs when in the last year millions upon millions of jobs were lost, Joe. You can't really say it's an accomplishment, especially when inflation was massive during the year.
More jobs in 1 year than ever before in the history of the United States of America. The economy grew at a rate of 5.7 last year, the strongest growth rate in 40 years. And the first step in bringing...
There was a crash the previous year, a massive one. It's not difficult to have a good a massive economic growth when it fell massively the last year. I'm assuming that's referring to GDP and not like something that actually impacts regular people.
Bringing fundamental change to our economy that hasn't worked for working people in this nation for too long. For the past 40 years, we were told that tax break for those at the top and benefits would trickle down and everyone would benefit. But that trickle-down theory led to a weaker economic growth, lower wages.
You haven't raised taxes on the rich pretty much at all, if my memory is serving me correctly. If I was leader, I would be forcing Joe Manchin and whoever else is dragging their feet to pass a massive tax cut on rich people. Which obviously you haven't done, Joe. Inequality, I saw a piece today. The rich over the last few years have stolen $3.9 trillion. Sorry, the billionaires are worth $3.9 trillion more than they were at the start of the year. Workers are worth $3.7 trillion less than they were at the start of the pandemic. It's clear where the money's going, Joe, and that's not just because of Trump. That's because of you. That's because of Obama. That's because of George Bush, and that's because of Bill Clinton. And I'd throw in George Bush Senior and Reagan in that as well. You don't get to blame. You don't get to pretend that this is some kind of success for you, and you targeting rich people when rich people are making off better than they ever have, unless they're Russian.
There's bigger deficits and a widening gap between the top and everyone else in nearly a century. Look, Vice President Harris and I ran for office, and I realized we had fundamental disagreements on this, but ran for office with a new economic vision for America. Invest in America, educate Americans, grow the workforce, build the economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down. Because
is Joe Biden saying that Kamala Harris was on the other side of that? That wouldn't surprise me, but and these are all just a bunch of weird slogans. Not weird. They're a bunch of slogans, but he hasn't actually done anything to make this true. He hasn't given everyone healthcare. He hasn't relieved student college debt. He hasn't done any of this stuff they should have done on day one.
We know. Because we know. Because as we know, when the middle class grows, the poor go way up and the wealthy do very well. America used to have the best roads, bridges, and airports on earth. And now our infrastructure is ranked 13th in the world. We won't be able to compete for the jobs of the 21st century if we don't fix it. That's why it was so important.
Oh god, it's me, Pete. Get off me, Pete. Get off me, Pete. Get off me, Pete. Also, what he's saying, just before I'll just get off me, Pete, for a second.
Bipartisan infrastructure law. And I thank my Republican friends who joined to invest and rebuild America.
Okay, now that Mia Pete's gone, the American Civil Society of Engineers said that an infrastructure package just to upgrade American infrastructure sufficiently would cost about $4 trillion. They said that, I think, in 2017. His infrastructure package was under $1 trillion. That's done and I think that was over, if memory serves, it was over 10 years. It was woefully inadequate. I totally agree with the idea of doing this stuff, which is crucial. Honestly, one of the first things I'd be doing on day one would be writing a bill to massively increase the quality of American infrastructure, and make it the envy of the world, make it even better like Japan and China's, without all the slave labor that China has. But Joe Biden has not done that. He's put forward a pretty weak plan that has not improved American infrastructure really at all.
The single biggest investment in history. It was a bipartisan effort, and I want to thank the members of both parties who worked to make it happen. We're done talking about infrastructure weeks. We're now talking about an infrastructure decade. And look,
if you do that bill 4 times over, you might get somewhere, Joe.
It's going to transform America, to put us on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century that we face with the rest of the world, particularly China. I told Xi Jinping, it's never been a good bet to bet against the American people. We'll create good jobs for millions of Americans, modernizing roads.
Yeah, it's me, Ted Cruz. Meh.
Airports, ports, waterways, all across America. And we'll do it to withstand the devastating effects of climate change and promote environmental justice.
Oh, you've done more fracking than Trump did in his first year. You do not get to complain about climate change.
We'll build a national network of 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Begin to replace the poisonous lead pipes so every child, every American has clean water to drink at home and at school.
I remember when you were Vice President, Joe, and Barack Obama basically tried to tell the people of Flint, Michigan, that their water was fine, even though every analyst who had studied it had pretty much comprehensively said that it wasn't fine whatsoever.
We're going to provide affordable, high-speed internet for every American, rural, suburban, urban, and tribal communities. 4,000 projects have already been announced. Many of you have announced them in your districts. And tonight, I'm announcing that this year, we will start fixing over 65,000 miles of highway and 1,500 bridges in disrepair. Folks,
I hope it happens.
when we use taxpayers' dollars to rebuild America, we're going to do it by buying American. Buy American products. Support American jobs. The federal government spends about $600 billion a year to keep this country safe and secure. There's been a law on the books for almost a century to make sure taxpayers' dollars support American jobs and businesses. Every administration, Democrat or Republican, says they'll do it, but we're actually doing it. We'll buy America.
He's not actually completely wrong there. So there have been like chip manufacturing plants to manufacture chips in America. They've just been opened. So he's not wrong that he is doing a bit of he is helping American manufacturing to some extent, and I think that is partly because like his parents were middle class. He's not like the rich elites that most of the previous presidents have been. But at the same time, I'm just googling this as we go, but I'm pretty sure he voted for NAFTA, which kind of means he doesn't get to say anything about about supporting American infrastructure. Yeah, he did vote for NAFTA. So, I mean, that decimated American towns. So he doesn't get to say. I don't think he's like okay. He's helping his record on this matter a bit, but his record is still negative because anyone who voted for NAFTA doesn't get to claim they have a good record on American manufacturing.
To make sure everything from the deck of an aircraft carrier to the steel on highway guardrails is made in America from beginning to end. All of it. All of it. But folks, to compete for the jobs of the future, we also need a level playing field. With China and other competitors. That's why it's so important to pass the Bipartisan Innovation Act sitting in Congress that will make record investments in emerging technologies and American manufacturing. We used to invest almost 2% of our GDP in research and development. We don't now. China is. Let me give you one example why it's so important to pass. If you travel 20 miles east of Columbus, Ohio, you'll find 1,000 empty acres of land. It won't look like much, but if you stop and look closely, you'll see a field of dreams, the ground on which America's future will be built. That's where Intel, the American company that helped build Silicon Valley, is going to build a $20 billion semiconductor megasite. Up to 8.
Good. Do it. Hurry. Now.
State-of-the-art factories in one place. 10,000 new jobs. And in those factories, the average job about $135,000 a year. Some of the most sophisticated manufacturing in the world to make computer chips the size of a fingertip. The power of the world in everyday lives. From smartphones, technology, the internet, technology that's yet to be invented. But that's just the beginning. Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger, who is here tonight. I don't know where Pat is. Pat, there you go. Pat, stand up. Pat came to see me and he told me they're ready to increase their investment from $20 billion to $100 billion. That would be the biggest investment in manufacturing in American history. And all they're waiting for is for you to pass this bill. So let's not wait any longer. Send it to my desk. I'll sign it. And we'll really take off in a big way. And folks.
Okay, this is one area where I totally am on Joe Biden's side. These guys who are sitting down here, disgraceful. They claim to be on the side of the working people. Seriously, this is the best thing for workers that there has been in decades, and they are not supporting it. What's so hard? Even Pete's on the right side of it. That is an incredible moment. When Pete is right about something, that means that it's like the biggest no-brainer there's ever been. If Pete Buttigieg can be right about something, it can't be that hard to be right about it. Seriously, come on, mate.
Intel is not alone. There's something happening in America. Just look around and you'll see an amazing story. The rebirth of pride that comes from stamping products made in America. The revitalization of American manufacturing. Companies are choosing to build new factories here when just a few years ago they would have gone overseas. That's what's happening. Ford is investing $11 billion in electric vehicles, creating 11,000 jobs across the country. GM is making the largest investment in its history, $7 billion to build electric vehicles, creating 4,000 jobs in Michigan. All told, 369,000 new manufacturing jobs were created in America last year alone. Folks, powered by people I've met like JoJo Burgess from generations of union steelworkers in Pittsburgh, who's here with us tonight. Where are you, JoJo? There you go. Thanks, buddy. As Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown says, it's time to bury the label Rust Belt. It's time to see the what used to be called the Rust Belt become the home of a significant resurgence of manufacturing. And with all the bright spots in our economy, record job growth, higher wages, so many families are struggling to keep up with their bills. Inflation is robbing them of gains they thought otherwise they would be able to feel. I get it.
Yeah. Look, I understand how impossible it is for Joe Biden to do just about anything right on the matter of inflation, because it's such a difficult topic to work on as the president, because he doesn't actually have as much power as you would think he does on this matter. But I don't think Joe Biden gets to talk about, okay, this is what he should be doing. Talking about how he understands inflation every day, should be coming out announcing a new program to try and combat it, even if it doesn't really work. If he announces a new program, if it looks like he's there for them, he looks like he's there for the American people, they will respect him a lot more than just like the odd throwaway "I get it." Like, for example, when FDR enacted the New Deal, for the first few years, it didn't really work. But all the same, in 1936, he won re-election by a massive margin, and the Democrats won 80% of the House and 80% of the Senate. So Joe Biden has been shown the template by FDR, and he claimed when he was elected that he would be the new FDR. I hope so, but what he's shown with inflation is that he doesn't really have as good a political instincts as you would hope for someone who's been in politics for as long as he has. So yeah, what FDR did is he came out, he released a program to deal with the Great Depression, and he just made it clear that I'm here for you, I will solve this. And people believed him because he enacted a plan, he had a plan, he enacted it, and eventually it worked. It worked really well. Joe Biden just needs to announce a plan, enact a plan, come out every day and talk about it, drone on about it, about how he is solving inflation. And his approval rating will go up. I promise you, his approval rating will go up. Politically, it is the right move. Economically, it's the right move. Do it, Joe.
That's why my top priority is getting prices under control. Look, our economy roared back faster than almost anyone predicted. But the pandemic meant that businesses had a hard time hiring enough people because of the pandemic
not actually completely true. So there are a lot of like stories like business like raises wage to it's like wage to $15 an hour. Then like they get hundreds of applicants for one job. The problem for a lot of businesses isn't that there just aren't enough workers. There are plenty of workers. It's just that no one wants to work for a wage that isn't a living wage. If they offer them a living wage, or if Joe Biden forces them to, to pay their workers a minimum wage by passing it as a law, a $15 minimum wage as a law, at least $15, by the way, they will then there won't be a shortage of jobs anymore because a lot of people who aren't working, who are of working age, have decided that they aren't going to work unless they're being paid properly for it, which they shouldn't. They shouldn't have to work unless they're being taught, unless they are being properly appreciated, which they aren't in a system in which they are being manipulated, in which they're being forced to work 40 hours a week or more for not enough money. So that is what Joe Biden should be doing. He should be forcing a $15 minimum wage if he wants to. If he doesn't want to come back next year and have to talk about businesses not having enough workers.
Keep up production in their factories. So you didn't have people making those beams that went into buildings because they were out. The factory was closed. The panic also disrupted the global supply chain. Factories close. When that happens, it takes longer to make goods and get them to the warehouses, to the stores, and prices go up. Look at cars last year. 1/3 of all the inflation was because of automobile sales. There weren't enough semiconductors to make all the cars that people wanted to buy. And guess what? Prices of automobiles went way up, especially used vehicles as well. And so we have a choice. One way to fight inflation is to drive down wages and make Americans poorer. I think I have a better idea to fight inflation. Lower your costs, not your wages.
Yeah, well, there was another thing that came out like recently about like the profit margins for these companies. It has gone way up. I saw Dan Price tweeted today that car dealerships' profit has more than trebled, or at least I think it was trebled since 2015 and doubled since 2019. It's not inflation that's a problem. Necessarily, it is in some corners, but these businesses are just making these bigger businesses are just making such a massive profit, and they're blaming inflation on them raising prices. But it's not actually because of inflation. It's because they want to be. That's because they're greedy. Have a go at corporate greed, enact antitrust laws on these companies that have a monopoly on just about everything, and make them lower their prices. So, I mean, they weren't. It's not like they were struggling before COVID, but they're making hay now that COVID has happened.
Folks, that means make more cars and semiconductors in America, more infrastructure and innovation in America, more goods moving faster and cheaper in America, more jobs where you can earn a good living in America. Instead of relying on foreign supply chains, let's make it in America.
Good, do it. Get rid of the free trade deal with China. Get rid of NAFTA 2.0 that Trump signed. Get rid of the TPP. Get rid of all these trade deals that mean that American products are manufactured outside of America. Give these jobs to Americans. Joe's saying all the right things, but in reality, he's only doing about half the work. I mean, half the work is still better than just about everyone else, but half the work still, it's not great. It's not great at all.
Look, economists.
They're all clapping. Even the Republicans, some of them are clapping. Do what I just told you to do. You all agree. Do it. It's not that hard. If moron 15-year-old like me can do it, you can do it.
Economists call this increasing the productive capacity of our economy. I call it building a better America. My plan to fight inflation will lower your cost and lower the deficit. 17 Nobel laureates in economics said my plan will ease long-term inflationary pressures. Top business leaders, and I believe most Americans support the plan. And here's the plan. First, cut the cost of prescription drugs.
Don't just cut the cost. Go all the way. Make the vast majority, if not all of these prescription drugs free. Make them free for everyone. In fact, nationalize big health. Most other countries, well, not most, but many other Western countries have a nationalized pharma system. They don't charge people for their insulin. They don't charge people for these highly, highly necessary drugs. Here in New Zealand, if I want insulin, I don't believe I have to pay for it. My grandmother has diabetes. She does not have to pay for her insulin. Why should Americans have to pay hundreds of dollars every month for this life-saving equipment? And what Joe Biden's saying is he's going to cut prescription drug costs. Trump said that. Obama said that. I wasn't really around, but I'm pretty sure George Bush said it. Everyone says it. Do it. I saw one thing just after Build Back Better had failed. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to make 10 prescription drugs free. 10 prescription drugs free. Fuck me. 10. You're seriously doing 10 prescription drugs. Jesus. Cut them all, Joe. No, don't cut them all. Make them all free at the point of use.
We pay more for the same drug produced by the same company in America than any other country in the world. Just look at insulin. 1 in 10 Americans has diabetes.
Insulin. I was right the second time. Insulin.
In Virginia, I met a 13-year-old boy, the handsome young man standing up there, Joshua Davis.
Oh, why are we asking a 13-year-old boy for our advice? And why have we put him in a suit? Why would any 13-year-old wear a suit? Jesus. I hate this event so much.
He and his dad both have type 1 diabetes, which means they need insulin every single day. Insulin costs about $10 a vial to make. That's what it costs the pharmaceutical company. But drug companies charge families like Joshua and his dad up to 30 times that amount. I spoke with Joshua.
So Joe Manchin, who's the Democrat who put a stop to this legislation to make drug prices cheaper. His daughter runs a drug company, and they were found to have been jacking up prices on drugs such as insulin when they were selling it to schools and like poor people. And honestly, Joe Manchin's daughter and all these other drug companies should be in prison. And Joe Manchin, probably what he did looking after his family interests ahead of that of the country. That's corruption. He should be gone. He should probably be in prison right now. Looking after his family interests over that of the country. Jesus.
His mom. Imagine what it's like to look at your child who needs insulin to stay healthy and have no idea how in God's name you're going to be able to pay for it. What it does to your family, but what it does to your dignity, your ability to look your child in the eye, to be the parent you expect yourself to be. I really mean to think about that. That's what I think about. You know, yesterday, Joshua's here tonight, but yesterday was his birthday. Happy birthday, buddy, by the way. For Joshua, 100,000 other young people with type 1 diabetes, let's cap the cost of it. And 200,000 other young people with type 1 diabetes, let's cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month. So everyone can afford it.
Cap it at zero.
And drug companies will do.
Joe, cap it at zero. They should not have to pay for insulin. I know $35 is a massive, is so much better, but don't settle for better. Don't let your opening pitch be better. Make your opening pitch perfect, and then if you have to negotiate it down, negotiate to good. Negotiate to better. Better should be your ending point, not your starting point, which you then have to negotiate down from. Yeah, that's just. I thought that was negotiation 101. Maybe I'm wrong.
Very, very well, their profit margin. While we're at it, I know we have great disagreements on this floor with this. Let's let Medicare negotiate the price of prescription drugs.
The fact that Medicare doesn't negotiate the price of drugs is, it's just it's. How did you get that system? How? Just how do the people, how does the government not have the ability to negotiate with these drug companies about the prices that the drug companies are charging? How is that possible? How is that system possible?
They already set the price for VA drugs. Look, the American Rescue Plan is helping millions.
Sorry, was Susan Collins shaking her head there? Shaking your head at negotiation drug? Fuck me. How can you disagree with negotiating drug prices? She's either corrupt or a moron. Just like all the Republicans and Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. All of them are either corrupt or morons. Like, I saw one point, 90% of Americans support this policy. It's not that hard. Again, more than 15-year-old me. I can work it out. 90% of Americans can work it out. And yet over half of America's Senate can't? Are you shitting me? God.
Of families with Affordable Care Act plans to save them $2,400 a year on their health premiums. Let's close the coverage gap and make these savings permanent. And second, let's cut energy costs for families, an average of $500 a year by combating climate change. Let's provide an investment tax credits to weather.
Okay, so something that should have been done in that infrastructure package that Biden was talking about earlier, if you remember, was that I believe that these companies should Sorry, I've actually forgotten what he said.
Here by combating climate change. Let's
Oh,
provide.
climate change. Sorry, I think I have dementia, despite my young age. Climate change. What the infrastructure package should have included is the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is not just a climate change plan, it's a whole economic plan that creates jobs around green energy. Yes, you lose jobs in oil drilling, you lose jobs in fracking, but you create millions upon millions of jobs in green stuff. You create millions of jobs in electric cars. You create it in solar. You create it in wind power. You create it in hydropower. Just in all of these areas, you create jobs that not only do you create jobs, but you also combat climate change, which, I mean, if nuclear war doesn't get to us first, climate change will end us. So Joe Biden, he's talking about half measures that he's implemented.
An investment tax credits to weatherize your home and your business, to be energy efficient and get a tax credit for it. Double America's clean.
I support the tax credit for having a green energy system in your home or business. At the very least, I also think that there should be like tax increases for businesses that don't, or at least businesses with like over 50 employees. So you aren't necessarily having to go at small businesses. Yeah.
Clean energy production in solar, wind, and so much more. Lower the price of electric vehicles, saving another $80 a month.
AOC should not be nodding her head here. When she was elected, she promised the Green New Deal. She promised she would fight for the Green New Deal. Now she's nodding along to half measures. Go all the way. Go all the way, AOC. The squad is useless. So is Bernie. So is every other elected official at the moment. They're all useless. They're nodding along to half measures when they claim to support the right policies, and then someone says like, "We might go halfway," kind of. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I give you an A plus. You're amazing." AOC, I think, said Biden had exceeded expectations. Just no, don't nod along to half measures. Pressure him.
You're not going to have to pay at the pump, folks. The third thing we can do to change the standard of living for hardworking folks is cut the cost of child care.
Make it free.
Cut the cost of child care. Folks, if you live in a major city in America, you pay up to $14,000 a year for child care per child. I was a single dad for 5 years, raising 2 kids. I had a lot of help, though. I had a mom, a dad, a brother, and a sister that really helped. But middle class and working folks shouldn't have to pay more than 7% of their income to care for the young children. My plan.
They should have to pay zero. Why are we asking people to fork out so much money when a lot of countries have made pre-K or kindergarten or whatever it's called in America? In most countries, it's free. Why isn't it free in America? Or at least if it's not free, it's pretty cheap. Why isn't it free in America? I know that Joe Biden nominally is supporting it here, but he's not actually going to pressure Joe Manchin. He's not actually going to pressure Kirsten Sinema into doing this, into supporting this policy.
My plan would cut the cost of child care in half for most families. and help parents, including millions of women who left the workforce during the pandemic because they couldn't afford childcare, to be able to get back to work, generating economic growth. But my plan doesn't stop there. It also includes home and long-term care, more affordable housing, pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds. All these will lower costs for families. And under my plan,
Yeah, they're all no-brainers.
nobody, let me say this again, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in new tax.
Should be $250K. People making $250,000, they can pay an extra 2%. And also,
I would probably actually support tax cuts for ordinary folk,
as long as it comes alongside massive tax increases up to like 70-80% on Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and their fellow billionaire comrades. But of course, Biden won't do that. At most, you'll raise it from 21% to 25% on rich people, which just is nothing like enough.
Not a single penny. I may be wrong, but my guess is if we took a secret ballot in this floor, that we'd all agree that the present tax system ain't fair. We have to fix it. I'm not looking to punish anybody.
You should punish Jeff Bezos, punish Elon Musk. These people who are union bust at Starbucks and Amazon and Tesla, of course. Punish them. Punish them until, just punish them to the ground.
But let's make corporations and wealthy Americans start paying their fair share.
You don't want to make them pay their fair share, Joe. You suggested 25%. Sorry, you suggested 28% and then negotiated down to 25% and then didn't even do that. Jesus.
Look, last year, like Chris Coons and Tom Carper and my distinguished Congresswoman, we come from the land of corporate America. There are more corporations incorporated in America than every other state in America combined. And I still won 36 years in a row. The point is, even they understand they should pay.
I wonder why you won 36 years in a row, Joe. It's because you don't punish them. Why is it these rich people like you, Joe? It's not because they I want to pay more in taxes. It's because they know that you aren't actually going to do it. It's because you're soft on them, Joe.
Just a fair share. Last year, 55 of the Fortune 500 companies earned $40 billion in profit and paid zero in federal taxes. Now look, it's not fair. That's why I proposed
Again, he's not wrong. Do something. Do it. And I know it's going to say here, I propose this, I propose that. It didn't happen, did it?
15% minimum tax rate for corporations. We've got, and that's why in the G7 and other meetings overseas, we're able to put together, I was able to be somewhat helpful, 130 countries agree on a global minimum tax rate. So companies can't get out of paying their taxes at home by shipping jobs and factories overseas.
You can also pretty much achieve that through tariffs, where you charge them more to import it to the industrial home of the world, which is America, than they save from shipping jobs out. So, I mean, that's not the only way to do it, and I would probably say it should be more than 15%. And I'd probably say that both of those things should be happening and the 15% should be more like 30 or so. So, yeah.
It'll raise billions of dollars. That's why I propose closing loopholes for the very wealthy who pay a lower tax rate than a teacher and a firefighter. So that's my plan, but we'll go more detail later. We will grow the economy, lower the cost of families. So what are we waiting for? Let's get this done.
That's what I've been saying. You haven't been listening. Now you're saying it's your idea, but you're not actually going to do it.
All know we've got to make changes. Folks, and while you're at it, confirm my nominees for the Federal Reserve, which plays a critical role in fighting inflation.
Yeah, I don't know about who they are on the Federal Reserve. I don't know his nominations. I did write about Federal Reserve policy about a month ago when I think I called the piece like recession incoming with question marks. I did write about Federal Reserve policy. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what their records are like. Joe Biden's nominating them, so yeah, probably not a great start. But I mean, we'll see. I don't know.
My plan will not only lower costs and give families a fair shot, it will lower the deficit. The previous administration not only ballooned the deficit with those tax cuts for the very wealthy corporations, it undermined the watchdogs, the job of those to keep pandemic relief funds being wasted. Remember we had those debates about whether or not those watchdogs should be able to see every day how much money was being spent, where was it going to the right place? But in my administration, the watchdogs are back.
They're watching. They're not actually doing anything, though. Rich people are getting richer than ever. Poor people are getting poorer than ever when you adjust for inflation. You aren't achieving much, Joe.
We're going to go after the criminals who stole billions of relief money meant for small business and millions of Americans. And tonight I'm announcing that the Justice Department will soon name a chief prosecutor for pandemic fraud.
Good work. Hopefully they actually do something.
And look, I think we all agree, thank you. By the end of this year, the deficit will be down to less than half of what it was before I took office. The only president ever to cut the deficit by more than $1 trillion in a single year. Lowering your cost also meant...
We didn't give you anything. Vote for me. Like, honestly, I'd much rather everyone has healthcare than the deficit looks good. On the other hand, I believe I read somewhere that the deficit is the debt, which is, of course, different to the deficit, is mostly the debt that the American government owes money to, is mostly held by American billionaires who don't pay tax. Tax them more. Don't borrow money from them. Tax them. Oh, I believe Richard Wolff has done some good work on this. Highly recommend it. Why are we borrowing money from people who don't pay tax? Make them pay tax. They can afford it. Jesus.
Demanding more competition. I'm a capitalist, but capitalism without...
Yeah. Sorry, Joe.
Competition is not capitalism.
When are when are you going to enact these? When are you going to enforce these antitrust laws, Joe? Soon would be nice.
Capitalism without competition is exploitation. It drives up profits.
He's not wrong. Waiting for him to do something about it.
Corporations have to compete. Their profits go up and your prices go up when they don't have to compete. Small businesses and family farmers and ranchers, I need not tell some.
He looks happy. Oh, it's Mitch McConnell. It's Mitch McConnell. He's got a nice suit, but like, he's also is it?
Oh, I thought it was like a Confederate tie. Shit. Oh my word. Yeah, sorry, it's Mitch McConnell. Just thought I'd point that out. Everyone, Mitch McConnell, bad. He's a very, very bad man, and he looks like a turtle.
Some of my Republican friends from those states. Guess what? You got 4 basic meat packing facilities. That's it. You play with them or you don't get to play at all. And you pay a hell of a lot more. A hell of a lot more because there's only 4. See what's happening with ocean carriers. They're moving good, didn't it?
Just on Meatpackers' breaking points with Cristobal and Sagrangetti, they did some very good work on the meatpacking industry. I would again highly recommend it. And it's crazy the total lack of competition within that, and how that not only are prices driven up, but farmers, the people who actually do the work, they are being exploited big time. So again, I don't know how to put this into words, but Joe Biden, you're saying the right things. Do something. Do it.
And out of America. During the pandemic, about half a dozen or less foreign-owned companies raised prices by as much as 1,000.
It's me, Mayor Pete. I'm a very intelligent man. I'm definitely not a robot. Sorry, there's just something about Mayor Pete that has like a visceral reaction for me. Hate that guy so much.
1% and made record profits. Tonight, I'm announcing a crackdown on those companies overcharging American businesses and consumers. Folks,
Oh my word, he actually did something about it. Why'd you wait a year? Should have done this day 2.
Would have been a very busy first week. I look, obviously wait for the details, but it's got a good name.
and as Wall Street firms take over more nursing homes, quality in those homes has gone down and costs have gone up. That ends on my watch.
I saw an article published a few days ago. I'll see if I can bring up the title so I can read it out to you. I did. I think I took a screenshot of it on my phone. Goldman Sachs asks in biotech research report, is curing patients a sustainable business model? I'm sorry, the fuck? Oh, I know that's not exactly what he was talking about, but I did just think of that. Hopefully Joe Biden goes after these criminals.
Medicare is going to set higher standards for nursing homes and make sure loved ones get the care they deserve and that they inspect and they will look at closely. We're also going to cut costs to keep the economy going strong and giving workers a fair shot, provide more training and apprenticeships, hire them based on skills, not just their degrees. Let's pass the Paycheck Fairness Act and paid leave. Raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Or more. And you can do something about it, and you didn't, so do it, moron.
And extend the child tax credit so no one has to raise a family in poverty. Let's increase Pell Grants, increase our historic support for HBCUs, and invest in what Jill, our First Lady who teaches full-time, calls America's best kept secret, community colleges. Look, let's pass the PRO Act. When the majority of workers want to form a union, they shouldn't be able to be stopped. When we invest in our workers and we build an economy from the
The PRO Act, which you did just mention, the best legislation I've seen in a long, long time. Massively pro-union, very much pro-worker. There are only a few Democrats holding out on it, and if FDR was president, he would be twisting arms big time. Do it, Joe. You, now.
Bottom up and the middle out together, we can do something we haven't done in a long time. Build a better America. For more than 2 years, COVID has impacted every decision in our lives and the life of this nation. And I know you're tired, frustrated, and exhausted. That doesn't even count the close to 1 million people who sit at a dining room table or a kitchen table and look at an empty chair because they lost somebody. But I also know this, because of the progress we've made, because of your resilience and the tools that we have been provided by this Congress, tonight I can say we're moving forward safely back to more normal routines. We've reached a new moment in the fight against COVID-19, where severe cases are down to a level not seen since July of last year. Just a few days ago.
So what he's saying is that COVID's better now than it was that other time he was also president. Look, totally agree with the suggestion that mandates, lockdowns, etc., should probably be stopping around about now. Probably should have stopped about August of 2020, to be fair. And especially with the vaccine. But he doesn't get to act like he's been a success on COVID. There was one study that came out that said, I can't remember if it was 33% or 40%. It was one of those two numbers of people who have died of COVID wouldn't have died if there was universal healthcare. As I already said, Section 1881A of the Affordable Care Act, Joe Biden can do that with a stroke of a pen. Do it.
The Center for Disease Control and Prevention issued a new mask guidelines. Under the new guidelines, most Americans and most of the country can now go mask-free.
Yeah. I tend to support that. But I don't get why now. Well, I do get why now. It's because of the polls. But scientifically, now isn't any better than any previous time. It's just that the polls say something different to what they said at one point, so now we're going to say something different. Personally, I don't get it. Again, doesn't make sense to me.
Based on projections, more of the country will reach a point across the next couple of weeks. And thanks to the progress we've made in the past year, COVID-19 no longer need control our lives. I know some are talking about living with COVID-19, but tonight I say that we never will just accept living with COVID-19. We'll continue to combat the virus as we do other diseases. And because this virus mutates and spreads, we have to stay on guard. And here are 4 common sense steps as we move forward safely, in my view. First, stay protected with vaccines and treatments. We know how incredibly effective vaccines are. If you're vaccinated and boosted, you have the highest degree of protection. We'll never give up on vaccinating more Americans. Now, I know parents with kids under 5 are eager to see their vaccines authorized for their children. Scientists are working hard to get that done. We'll be ready with plenty of vaccines if and when they do. We're all ready.
Waiting for the signs on that, haven't been convinced. Boosters work for some people. For some people, the risk of other side effects is greater than the risk of COVID if they've had two jabs. So boosters, I'm sort of cautious on. I'm not getting a booster personally. Yeah. So boosters, I would suggest if you're elderly, I would get it. If you're not, I mean, it's up to you. Personally, me being I put myself in the 16 to 30-year-old male age group. I would not. I'm not getting the vaccine, and I would not suggest that my comrades in that demographic get it, just because of the risk of myocarditis from the third jab is much greater than the risk of being hospitalised with COVID if you're double jabbed. So take the vaccine. Boosters, I'm cautious on.
We are also ready with antiviral treatments.
Defence Production Act. He could have produced them massively. We've had a shortage of them throughout the pandemic. Joe Biden could have done something about this. He could have used the Defence Production Act to produce them. He didn't. That's on him. He doesn't get to pretend that this is a victory for him when he's failed.
If you get COVID-19, the Pfizer pill reduces your chances of ending up in the hospital by 90%. I've ordered more pills than anyone in the world has. Pfizer is working overtime to get us 1 million pills this month and more than double that next month.
Oh, God, I hate Pfizer so much as a company. God. Not that the pills they're making are bad, just the profit they make from it. Just no.
And now we're launching the Test to Treat initiative. So people can get tested at a pharmacy, and if they prove positive, receive the antiviral pills on the spot at no cost. Folks, if you're immunocompromised or have some other vulnerability, we have treatments and free high-quality masks. We're leaving no one behind or ignoring anyone's needs as we move forward. On testing, we've made hundreds of millions of tests available, and you can order them for free to your doorstep.
They were very late on that. It should have been ready months ago. It was ready a few weeks ago. They were very late. The UK did it very, very quickly, and they've got Boris Johnson as leader, the most incompetent man, one of the most incompetent men there's ever been. So, if Boris Johnson can do something a few months ago, you shouldn't be waiting until a couple of weeks ago to be ready for that.
And we've already ordered free tests. If you already ordered free tests tonight, I'm announcing you can order another group of tests. Go to covidtest.gov starting next week, and you can get more tests.
He's really proud he remembered that.
Second, we must prepare for new variants. Over the past, we've gotten much better at detecting new variants. If necessary, we'll be able to develop new vaccines within 100 days instead of maybe months or years. And if Congress presides...
100 days is months, Joe. Fuck me. Oh, how stupid can a man be?
The funds we need, we'll have new stockpiles of tests, masks, pills ready if needed. I can't promise a new variant won't come, but I can promise you we'll do everything within our power to be ready if it does. Third, we can end the shutdown of schools and businesses. We have the tools we need. It's time for America to get back to work and fill our great downtowns again with people. People working from home can feel safe and begin to return to their offices. We're doing that here in the federal government. The vast majority of...
I really don't like goatees. Hate goatees.
Federal workers will once again work in person. Our schools are open. Let's keep it that way. Our kids need to be in school.
That's what I've been saying. Your party has not been saying that until the polls changed.
Fuck me. Thanks for admitting you're wrong, even after all the harm you've caused for young children and their education and their social abilities. Jesus.
With 75% of adult Americans fully vaccinated and hospitalizations down by 77%, most Americans can remove their masks and stay in the classroom and move forward.
What was he doing with his hands there? He's got something in a pocket and he doesn't know what. He's got a mask somewhere and he doesn't know where it is. And he's trying to pass that off as I didn't forget. Joe.
Safely. We achieved this because we provided free vaccines, treatments, tests, and masks. Of course, continuing this costs money. So I'll not surprise you. I'll be back to see you all. And I'm going to soon send a request to Congress. The vast majority of Americans have used these tools and may want again. We may need them again. So I expect Congress, and I hope you'll pass that quickly.
The Defense Production Act. You can do that with a stroke of a pen, Joe. You don't need Congress.
Fourth, we'll continue vaccinating the world. We've sent 475 million vaccines.
Okay, Joe, you could lift the patent protections that Pfizer and AstraZeneca have, and all the other companies, of course, and make it just like every other vaccine that we have. That is that anyone can get the vaccine. You chose not to do that. You and Germany, it was Angela Merkel who vetoed it, chose not to do that. It's so much more effective than charity. With charity, 5, 6, 7% of Africa is vaccinated. A much large percentage of Africans have the polio vaccine or have the just like the smallpox vaccine. All these other vaccines have been taken much more in Africa than the COVID one. Why? Because those other vaccines don't have the patent protections on them. Anyone can make, any factory anywhere in the world can make them. India normally make hundreds of millions, if not billions, of vaccines for polio, for smallpox, all the vaccines. They can't do that with COVID because Pfizer and AstraZeneca and Moderna and J&J have the patent protections. Again, you can lift those patent protections. Do it.
Vaccine doses to 112 countries, more than any nation on earth. We won't stop because you can't build a wall high enough to keep out a vaccine. The vaccine can stop the spread of these diseases. You know, we've lost so much in COVID-19. Time with one another. The worst of all, the much loss of life. Let's use this moment to reset. So stop looking at COVID as a partisan dividing line. See it for what it is, a god-awful disease. Let's stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing each other for who we are, fellow Americans. Look. We can't change how divided we've been. It was a long time in coming. But we can change how to move forward on COVID-19 and other issues that we must face together. I recently visited New York City Police Department days after the funerals of Officer Wilbur Mora and his partner, Officer Jason Rivera. They were responding to a 9/11 call when a man shot and killed them with a stolen gun. Officer Moore was 27 years old. Officer Rivera was 22 years old. Both Dominican Americans who grew up in the same streets that they later chose to patrol as police officers. I spoke with their families, and I told them that we were forever in debt for their sacrifices and will carry on their mission to restore the trust and safety of every community deserves. Like some of you that have been around for a while, I've worked with you on these issues for a long time. I know what works. Investigating crime prevention and community policing, cops who walk the beat, who know the neighborhood, and who can restore trust and safety. Let's not abandon our streets or choose between safety and equal justice.
Okay, so obviously, defund the police is the worst slogan anyone's ever come up with. But if you look at the policy, it's not actually that bad, and I would probably encourage it. It's basically take funding away from cops and give it towards social services that increase trust between the enforcers and the enforcees. I'm pretty sure I just made up 2 words there. Just take away, just try to make it a more trusting community that like each other and care about each other and respect each other, rather than a society in which we've got cops with their guns and their batons and tasers that can harm everyday Americans, especially poor people and especially African Americans. So even something very simple like in New Zealand, our cops aren't great, but our cops must keep their guns in the back of their cars, and they have to open a booth, like a locked thing, to get to access their guns. And we have nearly no cop shootings, and we have nearly no cops getting shot or getting killed in the line of duty. So even something simple like that is much more effective than having cops turn up with their gun right there in their holster. There is a constant threat. Okay, honestly, policing is not the issue I know the most about. I don't really know that much about it, but that's my general take on it.
Let's come together and protect our communities, restore trust, and hold law enforcement accountable. That's why the Justice Department has required body cameras, banned chokeholds, and restricted no-knock warrants for its officers. That's why the American Rescue Plan that you all provided $350 billion that cities, states, and counties can use to hire more police, invest in more proven strategies. Proven strategies like community violence interruption, trusted messengers, breaking the cycle of violence and trauma, and giving young people some hope. We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police, it's to fund the police.
Again, worst slogan there's ever been. The policy isn't horrific. It's not great. I think the general belief was to cut it in half or even to abolish the police. I don't support that. But, why is Joe so bad?
Fund them. Fund them with resources and training. Resources and training they need to protect their communities. I ask Democrats and Republicans alike to pass my budget and keep our neighborhoods safe. And we'll do everything in my power to crack down on gun trafficking, of ghost guns that you can buy online, assemble at home, no serial numbers, can't be traced. I ask Congress to pass proven measures to reduce gun violence. Pass universal background checks. Why should anyone on the terrorist list be able to purchase a weapon? Why?
Yeah, guns are generally more on the right wing side on gun rights, but I do agree with Biden there that universal background checks are just again a no brainer. Yeah.